investors or people who have an interest in short-term letting, mid-term letting, and of course taking advantage of Airbnb, Booking.com, Vrbo. And I had thought that it's been nearly a month since we had these chats and these conversations, that I'd actually like to update you on a whole lot of information that I've got. For me, one of the most exciting things about where I had shared with a whole lot of people that I was going to Vietnam. So I really would like to share a bit more about that. That's why we haven't been having these chats for the last month. I spent 4 weeks in Vietnam in caving. So I just want to chat about that, but also share some of the challenges that I actually had around that. Because if you followed me on my Facebook, you would actually have realized or seen that I spent this time under these caves, out of all reception, out of all contact with the outside world, making sure that all of my Airbnbs and everything else was working in the background, only to come out, surface from this and get a message that my Airbnb manager, who was running some of my portfolio, both in the multi-let student housing and a whole lot of the Airbnbs, had climbed on top of their roof to fix a hole from the severe storm that Cape Town had slipped, had fallen through her roof and had died. And that was obviously a curveball of note, just from the perspective of someone that I had known and worked with for the last 3 years and who manages a whole lot of the stuff for me. But just that curveball of, well, what do you do now when such a core part of your team is no longer there? And I just chat about how I had to deal with that, and how, again, the systems that we are creating in both any kind of investing, in long-term letting or in short-term letting, such as Airbnb, we want to put in place, I call it systems, and then we want to put in place backups of systems, and then we want to put in place the backups of the backups. Because without that, we are at risk. And I always like to mitigate my risk, because if I can solve all the risk problems, we just open up a wide range of possibilities into the future. So I wanted to share a bit about that, because that was a new thing for me around that, but also just some of the latest insights that we are seeing, both from Airbnb, Booking.com, and to update you on some of those things. So that's super exciting as well. I think firstly, what I'd like to share is, for those of you who actually have the Airbnb course, the advanced course and all of that, I'm pleased to announce that this morning I got up really early to upload the final videos for the Booking.com section. So now we have a whole Booking.com section onto the Airbnb course. And now I'm kind of thinking, maybe I shouldn't have called it the Airbnb course. Maybe I should have called it the short-term letting course. How to make lots of money, automate things, create the life that you love to live using short-term letting, not just Airbnb. Because as many of you know, I love Airbnb because it just has a whole lot of things which work. It's got the insurance policies, the techniques that we've used to create strike-throughs and be listed first and increase the automation skills are fantastic. And the challenges that so many of us have had with Booking.com are around the lack of insurance, just the complexity of the platform, and a whole lot of different things. That's why we wanted to actually see if we could solve and have a workaround. So finally got my teeth stuck into that. If you remember, a couple of weeks back, I interviewed Bruce. Bruce came on to our chat and actually chatted with us about his success at Booking.com. He shared a whole lot of his insights, and I said, you know what, let me actually just record a whole lot of what he's sharing and his insights and access, or his insights and tips and skill sets, which I then did. That's on the course now. And of course, I also then looked at what he was sharing. I delved into it as well, figured out how the promotions work, how the partnership, the partner hub and the genius stuff, all those things work, so that I could actually really make a big difference and find a way to unlock that process. So that's all now up and done. And I'm so pleased about that, because now we can actually leverage that. And what I say is, I want to use exactly the same things that I've done on my Airbnb. I want to put that into the Booking.com section, so that the same things about showing the discounts and showing those strike-throughs and how we get listed first and how we show it's a good deal and how we increase our automation and messaging, all those things now are actually in place so that we can benefit from that. So I really want to just share a little bit around that. But like I mentioned, I would love to actually share with you some of these photographs. Let me just see how I do it here. Let me go and say, here we go. Okay, so here's one. So for those of you who know, Vietnam, it's been on my bucket list to go to see the biggest caves in the world, and this is in Vietnam. And what I mean by biggest caves in the world is not just a statement, it's a reality. These are the biggest caves in the world in that they are like rivers flow through them, and they are known in their biggest volume size. And that was just me with the surrounding. Actually, that light in the background is a hole in the roof of it. There you can actually see I'm inside this tiny little figure at the bottom, and that's actually the hole in the roof. So you can just start to get a sense of what the scale is around these caves. There again is me looking up in part of the cave. The light is coming from the roof of the cave. And if you're actually able to, depending on how you're looking at this video, if you take a look above my head, there's like a little pedestal that sticks out. If you, there's a little dot. This little dot is actually a person standing on the circular outcrop. And that is another person who's just shows the immense scale. They're directly in the light, the sunbeam that's coming down. So that one's just gives a bit of sense of scale. Of course, it's a cave. So you've got stalactites, stalagmites. I mean, isn't that amazing? So here we are standing in front of it. We slept in the cave. So here is a group of us. There were 10 of us who were caving, and this whole background is looking down into the cave. So it's a massive, massive cave. What's fascinating is there were 10 of us who actually were guests in the caves, but it required 26 team members to carry the tents, to the chefs, through to the safety people. I mean, it's a massive team that could help us and take us through. Here's another campsite in a cave, or in the entrance to the cave. And you can just see here are some of our tents in front. Just a spectacular experience. Massive cave, pushes towards the opening, and in the bottom right, you can see those little lights. Those are the headlights of the cavers as they're walking through. So just a crazy, crazy experience of how this all looked. And like I had shared with you before, this has been on my bucket list. And I know, I use Airbnb and short-term letting to create income so that I can create the life that I love to live. And for me, that is so important. That's my why. I want to go out there, experience things, spend time with people. This background that you see, which is a background, is actually what I'm viewing right now in front of me. I'm in Knysna, spending until end of June with my brother and my sister, because I've got my properties and my stuff in Cape Town that's doing well and is allowing me that flexibility, and I can manage a lot from here. And that's exactly what we're looking at. And I think when we're moving into that short-term letting space, we want to duplicate as much as possible so that we can scale and grow, and of course keep pushing that boundary of what we're really wanting to do and capable of doing. And I think that's why I love this space, and sharing those things with you is why we're on this chat. So I'm going to just open up my chat here as well so I can see if there are any questions. There are none so far, so that's great for me. If there are no questions, if you've got questions, ask, because this is your chance to engage and speak to me. I'm full up in that I got no more space for coaching for clients, so this is really a space that if you do want to ask me a question about what I see is happening, where the growth is, the insights, I'll share what I think is worthwhile knowing, but you might have a specific question that you would like. And I'm going to share a couple of nuggets that I've found recently that I think are really, really great. So let's actually jump into that. Like I mentioned, we just fleshed out the booking.com section because I want to be able to use booking.com as a plug and play module into my short-term letting so that I can broaden my audience, access those insights, increase my occupancy rates, which basically means have more availability for the occupancy rates, as well as sometimes actually increasing my income because I can set it that they might pay a premium as opposed to my focus, which is on Airbnb. So I'm using both of those, and that's the strategy that we've implemented. Now, what's really interesting is in listening and in looking into some of the booking.com statistics, yes, I'm in Cape Town, but a lot of what I'm sharing is also around the country. And these, I think, are the insights of travelers, of guests, not just of people looking for tourist places. This is not just international. there's a large drive of domestic travelers for whatever the reason is, business, family, holidays, and what we're sharing encompasses all of that. The first thing that I think is so worthwhile noting is that 80% of people booking on booking.com are doing so through their mobile phones. That's a significant amount. So if you're looking at your listing just from a computer and you think that everything looks great, well, take a look through the mobile settings. Go in on your phone and look at what are you looking at? What are the discounts offered from different platforms for mobile users? And that's part of your competition. I mean, 80% of people is significant. If they are using their phones to make bookings, well, can we take advantage of that? In booking.com, yes, you can. You can actually set a discounted rate specifically targeting people who are using mobile phones. And what does that do? Well, you can imagine that if booking.com sees that it's a mobile user, of course, they want to push your listing forward and up if it produces more discounts, which means more bookings and conversions, which means they get more commission. So, of course, we want to do that. So in the course there, I've shared actually how we do all those things, but the insight is 80%. So we need to action that, because I also believe in kind of like responsive marketing. And what I mean by that is I'm going to also look to see where the demand is, and I'm going to position myself in front of that demand. And what I mean by that is if there are 80% of bookings being used and done on a mobile device, well, then I'm going to, of course, strategize that I can leverage off the mobile discount. So that's the first thing. Second thing, which is super interesting, 21% of people looking and booking are doing so for trips 90 days in advance. So they're saying, I've got a trip coming up in 3 months' time. I'm going to look now and make a booking. That's a significant amount of people. It was the highest percentage of the length of stay, which is over 3 months or more than 3 months. That was 21%. 20%, which is just 1% different, were people looking for on the day or the day before. So 20% are looking for 3 months in advance, 20% are looking for today and tomorrow. That again is hugely significant, because if you get that right, that's an untapped market. Now, here is what is really interesting is very few listings are able to handle on the day bookings, because they're not automated, they're not set up correctly, they don't have things like instant book where the user can just book straight away, as opposed to, hey, I have to let the host know that I want to come, and the host has to get back to me to confirm a booking. If I need a place to stay tonight, and right now we're at 1 o'clock, I don't have 24 hours for the host to reply back to me if there is space or not. It's now or it's not. It's never. So if you can set up your booking to take last minute bookings or on the day bookings, you access a market segment that a lot of people are just ignoring. And I actually show in the videos that I recorded, I show you and say, if I had to go just for a one night booking, who is available and who could have been available if it wasn't just a one day. And you'll see that as soon as I click this button that says only show the available properties, 80-90% of all the properties there just disappear because they're not available. Those are significant insights that we need to take advantage of. Now, for many of you, you might say, well, I can't do anything about that because I have to go hand over my keys. I have to message them. What happens if I'm watching a movie? What happens if I'm watching my kids' running race? What happens if I'm in a coaching session speaking to someone? If it's not automated, how do I do something about that? Well, that's exactly what we need to solve, right? Because otherwise we're just stuck there in another job, managing check-ins and check-outs and cleaners. We need to have that as automated as much as possible. So if you really want to take advantage of that insight, then you need to be able to set up your systems, which is your communication, your check-in process, the way the cleaners can come in, anything that needs to happen so that it is done to a large degree of automation. And of course, that's what I focus on, because I want to be in Spain, I want to be in Indonesia surfing, I want to be in Vietnam caving, I want to be here in Neisner with my family. I want to do a whole lot of stuff that allows for those things to happen while I'm somewhere else. And it's the time zone difference, which also is majorly challenging, because when I'm tired and going to sleep in Hong Kong, so after Vietnam, I went to Hong Kong, we were 6 hours ahead. So even if I go to bed at midnight in Hong Kong, it's only 6 o'clock here in South Africa. So as a person is about to check in, I'm going to sleep. What happens if there's a problem? If you really want to be remote and to travel, you need to have very strong systems and automation. So again, that's a strong drive, and that's what I focus on primarily, also with the Airbnb and the booking.com. And obviously I talk a lot about that from the in the course structure, because that's what it's all about. I don't want another job, and I don't also want another side hustle where I'm having to work extra hard on the side to make it work. I'm wanting to really leverage off all this, the tech and the strategies that we're putting in place. So that's super interesting. I also did mention that, when I came out of Vietnam, out of the caves, that I was informed that my manager, who was managing a whole lot of stuff for me, like overseeing it, they're the cleaners, they're the ones that pick up, oh, this is broken, and they organize it to be fixed and all those things, that she had fallen off the roof and had, I think, broken her neck and therefore had died. And that was quite a big challenge. Now, I have always said, and in the courses I say again and again, that we need to make sure that we have backup cleaners on the cards. Like, we've already spoken to them, we have a relationship with them, we might not have used them, but we know that they are there. The reason being because I also never want to be like backed into a corner by a cleaner. Like, a cleaner makes demands and says, listen, if you don't do this, then I'm going to stop tomorrow and your cleans are not going to get done. And that is significant. If I don't get my units cleaned and ready for the next guest, that is huge, because I'll have to cancel the next booking, and that is going to be massive. It will destroy my rating. It's going to be severe penalties. Just look, it happens, but I don't want it to happen if I can. So I always say that we need to have at least 2 or 3 other backup people that we can approach in case our main cleaning company is no longer there, or for whatever that reason is. And in this case, luckily that was all there, was quickly in place, so that at least they could take it over. I could continue the business and then start to pick up the pieces and re-put in place how this is all going to look, and reassemble everything together. Not an ideal situation, especially being so far away in Vietnam and Hong Kong and China, but it happens, and it just reinforces that we're treating this like a business. We're not just treating it as it's just the flat down the road, or it's just our granny flat above our garage. Even though that may be true, and that's always a good start. I mean, many of you will know my story started by a room on the side of our house that we then isolated, and that was the starting point. The concept here is a business approach to our short-term letting, so that we can leverage off all the insights of running a business, because all businesses follow certain principles about how we grow, how we expand, how we accelerate that growth, and of course, how we mitigate risk and put in place the sustainability of our business, especially when we're wanting to step out of the business and not always be the one in the business. So when we're continuously working on the business and stepping out of the business, it creates those opportunities for us to see how do we make this business work without me. I always want to build a business that is sellable, and a business that is sellable needs to be without me. Now, I've got no problem with being in the business, but the design of it and the conceptual framework and strategic implementation of it needs to be that I am replaceable, and I don't have to be the one that it's up to me or nothing happens. So that's going to be really, really important. In that scenario, in that case, like I mentioned, I have all the cleaning manuals all there, and you'll see that in the course, that I really am a firm believer that if anyone new comes to the property, they should be able to literally clean, put everything in its place, because there's a step-by-step guide on how I want things to look, what I want them to clean, and even to the detail of, for example, in my clothes dryer, there's one of the drawers that need to be pulled out because it sucks the water from, obviously, the tumble dryer, and that needs to be emptied, or what happens is it is full, and therefore the machine won't actually start. Now, it's not intuitive for many people who don't have a tumble dryer. So I actually have to state on my cleaning manual, take out the drawer and empty the water to put it back in. So my cleaning manual has all the different detail. Make sure that the lights in the bedrooms, the side table lights, are actually plugged in. Make sure you clean under the couch. Look under the beds to see if the guest has left anything. I had guests who just left their wedding ring, actually, last week. So a whole lot of things that I put in place so that if there was a new person who has no idea about how to clean an apartment or how my apartment needs to look, they now can actually see that because it is listed and they can just copy it and replicate it. Sometimes you don't know that. What happens if a guest moved the couch, moved the table, and you've got a new person in there who doesn't know how it's set up? They're going to assume that it's set up that way. I'm wanting it to be how I've designed it to be. Why? Because how I've designed it to be is the cause of getting the results that I get, which is increased profits, increased occupancy rates, and that makes it work. Like, what I mean by increased occupancy rates, I'm talking 95 to 98% occupancy. Like, if I have one night vacant in a 4-month period, I don't like that. So I'm continuously looking at how do I improve or increase this, and that's what I'm looking for. Everything that I do is strategic. The stuff is positioned, is put there with an intention. You know, I had a set of cleaners who, I don't know why, for some reason, they close the curtains and they say, yeah, but the unit gets hot. I'm like, okay, that may be true, but I want that first impression when my guests walk into that unit is to go, wow. I want them to see the view of the sea and the mountain. I want them to feel that this is a high rise and they're on the penthouse and they've got an amazing experience. If it's hot, fine, then open a window. Well, they will. But I want that wow factor to come through right up front. So I needed to tell them that this is how I'm wanting it to be done, not what they thought. They'd thought, it looks better with it all closed. I'm like, that's not what I am wanting. So we just come back to, you know, how intentional are you in making this happen? Okay, so we still don't have any questions. So if you've got any questions, like I said, this is your time to ask, because this is a great thing. I've probably got about another 10 minutes with you to chat about these things and to touch base on it. The other interesting thing that I've noticed about property, especially from a global scale, I mean, we all know the interest rates hike in, obviously, South Africa, that's one thing. But if we're looking at Europe, we're looking at the US, there's a lot in the news about the US in the commercial real estate being at least 15% down, with probably about another 10% still to go before the bottom. Now, what's interesting, and this came up on one of my news feeds just recently, that I think it's BlackRock in the US. So one of the big funds that invest and buy up real estate just closed a fund on 30 billion rand. Sorry, $30 billion. $30 billion. And that is their ability to tell the global market, we see that coming up over the next while is a crunch time, is a difficulty where a lot of real estate is going to come into the market because it's stressed. And we as the fund want to be ready because we know we're going to be able to buy up real estate at an incredible price because of the global recession that we're moving into. And based on that, they could raise $30 billion into this fund that is going to be geared specifically to purchase these properties that are going to come into the market because of stressed businesses. So that's really interesting to see what's going on. Now, we see as well, if you Google and look, they say Airbnb in the global world also seems to be taking some strain. People don't have as much cash to go and travel. They're a bit more tight around the belt. That's not what we've quite experienced in South Africa. I have always said that the Airbnb and that short-term letting in South Africa seems to be slightly different to the rest of the world because somehow we have our own rules that seem to work here about what impacts us and what doesn't. I still see an increased amount of travel and people moving and booking in accommodation. And that is still what we want to tap into. So I take whatever I hear about Airbnb and short-term letting around the world with a pinch of salt, because I prefer to go with what's happening in front of me, not on speculation of what's happening halfway around the world in a totally different economy to what we see here, which again reminds me that the growth of Airbnb is increasing, short-term letting. More and more people are coming into it. More and more supply is coming to the market, and as people are listing more and more, and even though the demand, in other words, there still is an increase of people traveling, the rate of supply is increasing, which in South Africa means that we need to increasingly be on top of our game so that we can be out-competing our competition. Because if we out-compete our competition, we will keep getting the profits that we are looking for. And remember that the profits for us are, in general rule of thumb, you should be getting twice your income through Airbnb, or twice your long-term letting rent if you did Airbnb. So if your normal 12-month lease to a tenant gives you 12,000 Rand, as a rule of thumb, you should be getting 24,000 Rand through Airbnb. Now, that makes a significant difference and is why a lot of people are shifting to that Airbnb short-term letting scenario. The difference is you can't just say, well, I'm going to list it on Airbnb and then just hope and wing it. That's where you're now needing to step up that game. In a competitive game, the clientele, the guests who are traveling are looking for different things. They're now more astute. It's no longer just the uniqueness of traveling and going to an Airbnb. It's now a business where people are actually now becoming more critical of where they are. They're expecting different things, and they're not going to tolerate shabby hosts. So this means that we need to really be sure that we're upping our game and we are taking care of all those small things to put our business in place first. And again, that's what I keep focusing on is I'm okay with there being an increased supply as long as I'm providing a valuable service that people will keep choosing as opposed to whoever else is out there and how that looks. And I know that, and I've experienced that because I've got thousands of listings all around my listings. And as long as I keep shining up first and being the chosen listing, then I'm good to go on that. So this is exactly what we're talking about is you bringing the skill sets, the insights, and the professionalism to set it up. After that, we want to kind of let it run a lot of its own course through the automation, but we want to make sure that we are position ourselves really strongly from that perspective. So there's my take at this moment around what I see currently in Airbnb. I've focused a lot on the booking.com over these last 2-3 weeks because it's another avenue. Also on Verbo, which is another listing platform. And of course, if you have channel managers like I do, it's really great because they talk to all those platforms and I don't have to go and try and manage all these different things and get confused. I love the plug and play model. I want to set it up right the first time and then allow it to roll forward and to give me the rewards that I'm looking for in that sphere. One of the things that I will be exploring more and sharing more about, especially I think in a different module in the course, is going to be the scalability component. Some of the people who have now done the course that I keep talking about are now at 15 to 20 listings and even more. And they've come to me and said, Robin, great, but we actually now need a different scalable model, which is going to be more around them not just relying on a system. There still needs to be some kind of a supervisor, overseer, admin kind of person who can manage the day-to-day logistics of some of the check-ins and that. And I think it's time for us to start talking about that and what we need to put in place to find the right people, to have the right contracts with them, because in a sense it's an employment contract, but it's so important to find the right person. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in staying in your business as opposed to working on your business. So last chance if anyone wants to just ask a question, touch base on anything that I've shared on, ask any other questions we come up with. Otherwise, I'm going to log out of this, and the sun is shining in front of me, similar to how you're seeing in the background. I promise you, it's just like that. The background is my view. It's got the deck in front with the water out there. It's high tide. Some boats on the lagoon. It's a truly beautiful day. So yeah, you can actually see maybe my glasses. There we go. Maybe you can see, but something like that. Anyway, so from my side, then I don't see any other questions. I look forward to seeing more questions that people have around the booking.com and Airbnb, because that is definitely where we're all heading into multi-platform basis, so that we can apply the same insights to leverage all of that. And of course, I will be back in 2 weeks' time, back on our Thursday slots, and look forward to touching base then. I'll definitely have some more guests as we keep unpacking all the value that people are gathering and how they're looking into things. It's super exciting to see how some of the different students and clients are taking these insights into high-end luxury villas, through to converting multi-lets into and adding an Airbnb. So they might have a traditional multi-let of 5 units, but now they're taking one of those units, turning into Airbnb, and then slowly expanding it out. Super, super interesting how this all morphs out. So we're looking forward to that. And of course, any other insights or questions that come up, we'll have a chat about that. So until next Thursday, look forward to, hopefully hearing from some of you in your questions. But otherwise, until then, hope it's a good rest of the day, a good rest of the week, and I'll see you on the other side.